The tolerance paradox. The dilemma of accepting intolerance. Is tolerance always a virtue? Or can it become a self-destructive force? This is the tolerance paradox, a profound and unsettling concept that challenges the foundation of open and free societies. First introduced by philosopher Karl Popper, this paradox forces us to ask a difficult question. How far should we tolerate opposing viewpoints, especially when those viewpoints threaten tolerance itself? The core of the paradox. Imagine a society built on the principles of tolerance, where people are free to express their beliefs, live as they choose, and engage in open discussions. But what happens when an intolerant ideology begins to rise? One that rejects these very values and actively seeks to suppress others' freedoms. The dilemma is clear. Heavy checkmark. If a tolerant society accepts the intolerant, it risks being overpowered by those who reject tolerance altogether. Crossmark. But if it refuses to tolerate intolerance, does it contradict its own values? This is the heart of the tolerance paradox, a concept that reveals the limits of tolerance and challenges the idea that tolerance should be absolute. The origins of the paradox. The tolerance paradox was introduced by Karl Popper in 1945 in his book The Open Society and Its Enemies. He argued that unlimited tolerance can lead to the collapse of tolerance itself. If a society allows intolerant ideologies to spread unchecked, those very ideologies could destroy the freedoms that made the society tolerant in the first place. His solution. A tolerant society must reserve the right to be intolerant toward intolerance. Is this a contradiction? At first, this might sound self-contradictory. How can a society committed to tolerance justify being intolerant? Small Blue Diamond Popper's argument isn't about silencing disagreement. It's about protecting the conditions that allow tolerance to exist. Small Blue Diamond. It's not about eliminating conflict. It's about ensuring that debates happen in a society where freedom and safety are upheld. The real-world impact of the tolerance paradox. This paradox isn't just a philosophical puzzle. It has serious real-world consequences, especially when it comes to freedom of speech. White heavy checkmark. Should free speech include those who use it to spread hate speech, incite violence, or advocate for oppression? White heavy checkmark. Some believe that even the most offensive ideas should be allowed in the spirit of open debate. White heavy checkmark. Others argue that allowing intolerant ideologies to spread can empower dangerous movements and put vulnerable groups at risk. Historical lessons from the tolerance paradox. History has repeatedly shown the consequences of unchecked tolerance. Pushpin. In the early 20th century, many democracies tolerated the rise of authoritarian movements, assuming they could coexist with democratic values. Pushpin. But in cases like Nazi Germany, that tolerance enabled dangerous ideologies to take power and destroy democracy from within. Pushpin. These historical lessons prove that when intolerance goes unchecked, it can have devastating effects on society. Where should we draw the line? This is where the tolerance paradox becomes even trickier. Not all forms of intolerance are equally dangerous. Small Blue Diamond. Disagreeing with someone's political views is not the same as advocating for their suppression. Small Blue Diamond. The challenge is distinguishing between harmful intolerance that threatens society and healthy debate that should be encouraged. The controversy. Who decides what's intolerant? Critics of Popper's idea raise an important concern. Who gets to decide what counts as intolerance? Warning. Labeling certain beliefs as intolerant can be subjective and open to misuse. Warning. Governments or powerful groups could exploit this concept to silence opposition under the pretense of protecting tolerance. This is why societies must carefully balance protecting themselves from intolerance while avoiding authoritarian control. The psychological side of intolerance. The tolerance paradox also sheds light on human psychology. Why do intolerant ideologies arise? Small Blue Diamond. Fear and ignorance often fuel intolerance. Small Blue Diamond. Threat perception makes people more likely to reject differing views. Small Blue Diamond. Education, dialogue, and empathy are powerful tools in reducing intolerance, but they may not always be effective against extreme ideologies. The tolerance paradox in today's world. In our highly polarized world, the tolerance paradox is more relevant than ever. Pushpin. We see it in debates over free speech and censorship on social media. Pushpin. We see it in political conflicts over the limits of tolerance. Pushpin, we see it in discussions about hate speech laws and human rights protections. As we navigate these challenges, one thing remains clear. Tolerance is not passive. It requires active protection to sustain an open and free society. Key takeaways from the tolerance paradox. White heavy checkmark: tolerance has limits, and setting boundaries is necessary to preserve freedom and diversity. White heavy checkmark: critical thinking is essential when responding to intolerance, whether through open dialogue, legal protections, or, if necessary, restrictions. White heavy checkmark: a truly tolerant society is not passive. It demands vigilance, courage, and a willingness to defend its core values. Final thought. The complexity of tolerance. The tolerance paradox isn't just an abstract debate. It's a reflection of the complexities of living in a diverse and open society. It forces us to confront the tension between our ideals and the realities of human behavior. And perhaps its greatest lesson is this: tolerance must be defended, not blindly granted, to ensure that freedom and justice thrive for future generations.